recording.
All right, well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Hopkinton School Board's special meeting on Monday, May 17th, 2021. And we have a full board with us here this evening, Norm Gupel, Rob Nato, Andrea Folsom, and Dulcie LaPoma. And then we're joined by Mia Richter, one of our student reps, and then Michelle Clark, our business administrator, and Mr. Stephen Chamberlain, our superintendent of schools. Steve, we have a flag for the Pledge of Allegiance?
We do. And one thing I can update everybody on, do you see Harold Martin there?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that looks much different.
Yeah, so all the scaffolding's off. Where you see the plywood, that's going to be metal sheathing, which is about the first week of June. But the outside is almost done. That was actually today. This was this morning when I was over there. So this is like off the presses, right off the presses today.
Looks great. Steve, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Steve. And it feels like I haven't had to do this in a while, but we are meeting completely remote. There is no physical location for our meeting this evening. And we're able to do this because of the governor's emergency declaration due to the COVID-19 pandemic and emergency orders that has changed the requirements for public bodies like the Hopkinton School Board, which allows us now to conduct our meetings fully remotely. So there's no physical location for this meeting today, but the board will be following all the other provisions of RSA 91A through the course of the meetings. The only additional change other than the two-dimensional school board on your screen tonight will be that all of our votes, if we take any, will be roll call votes. With that, I believe we, actually, let me pull up the agenda. I shouldn't believe anything. Let's see. Steve, are there any additions or deletions from the agenda this evening?
No, the agenda is fine as it stands.
And any correspondence?
I don't think there are any connected to this meeting. There are some ready for Thursday, though.
Perfect. And then we do have public comment on the agenda. And so I would just ask if there's anybody joining us this evening from the public who wishes to provide a comment, that we can take that now. And we have one towards the end of the meeting. If there's a raise your hand button towards the bottom of your screen. If you scroll over that and click it, we can take public comment. All right, so with that, we'll move on to any comments from the Hopkinton School Board members.
Just a quick comment, Steve. Thank you for getting our vaccination clinic up and running. It's heard a lot of people in the community really excited about that and are taking advantage of that. So thank you very much for doing that.
You're welcome.
All right, anybody else? We have another opportunity on Thursday. All right, so seeing none, we can move. There's no presentations or staff reports, and we have two items for discussion, the reason for this meeting. And so I'm going to turn it over to Steve to walk us through the school funding court case and joining the Conval lawsuit.
Sure. Believe it or not, Jim, Attorney Tobin came to us in December of 2019. When I was looking for that meeting, I thought it was like 2016. It seems like a lifetime ago, but it was right before really the pandemic, one of the last regular meetings we had. So he came, presented the case really to see if Hopkinton would join back then on the lawsuit, and amicus, a friend of the court status. He really did feel that having a variety of districts of sizes and other demographics would strengthen the need from the state to support the case. And so the board voted unanimously to join the case. I appreciated that very much. And then the Supreme Court returned it back to the lower court, and basically we're starting over. It didn't refuse it or turn it down. It just said we've got to redo some facts and some things. So attorney, as we talked about at the last meeting, Attorney Tobin reached out to us to see if we'd be willing to join the suit. And simultaneously, Kimberly Rizzo Saunders, who's the superintendent in Conval, reached out to us to ask us to join. And when I spoke to her late last week, there are about 20 districts that are either have joined or having this type of meeting pretty quick to join. So there's a lot of momentum in this work to join and just to be a part of a significant movement trying to get the state to adequately fund education. One of the things I included in the packet, Michelle and I worked with Doug Hall and John Tobin. If you saw it in the packet, just what the school district looked like on pure adequacy aid. It was a fun exercise, and it just shows, I think that most can agree that right now adequacy is really misnamed. It is not adequate supporting of the education. And working through, there's been a long history of going through the Claremont case, and which is a famous school funding case. And I think, Jim, you and I have talked about R.P. Saunders, who was one of the attorneys that helped persuade the court that education is a responsibility of the state by a translation of the word cherish. RP found the word cherish, which meant cherish it is your responsibility. And so from Hopkinton, going back to RP, to the recent boards, to this board, I think this board has been very strong advocates for appropriate state funding in the schools. And so the opportunity presents to have Hopkinton represent as have been a piece of the litigants, the piece of their joining this cause. And as Attorney Tobin said, Hopkinton is rare. We are a property poor town, and which is we have about $780 million or so of property, and we have about 1,000 students, and the threshold is about $1 million per student. So we're less than $1 million per student of property value. So we would be classified in the state of New Hampshire as a property poor town. Yet we have, I think, remarkable returns and remarkable support by an extraordinary community, which sacrifices much to support high quality schools. So I think that's our history about why us, what we've done in the past. I did a couple of questions that the board asked, what would be the impact on the district? The impact would be, there's some work about costing and about adequacy and how the funding is used, similar to the work that Michelle and I have already done. The financial commitment, and this is, we're looking at somewhere around $10,000 a year for 2 years for our share. And as more districts join, the pool gets bigger and that would reduce. I think we can say up to, but probably not too far above $10,000 a year for the next 2 years. They look at this as, and Kimberly would say, this looks like it's a 2-year effort to get this all the way through the process. Does that help? Is there any other questions that I can help you with about this journey?
See, that was great. And maybe it's for the public or the public who may watch this afterwards. Can you just talk just briefly about why we have the special meeting today and sort of what's, because I know there's a decision that needs to be made. And so it's more just to put that on the table.
Sure. So they are getting signees to the case, and it's being presented. Our deadline by the Conval School District was to notify by the 18th, and that's tomorrow. So tonight after this, I will, depending on what the outcome is, either way, I'll be texting and in reporting the action items. So the filing is coming very soon, and Kimberly's doing the best she can to get people to make the decision prior to the filing so we can actually be listed when the case is filed. And I think she said the last day we could is the 18th. So I don't know if it's going to be filed on like the 19th, but it's going to be filed soon. I don't know if that was clear. Was that clear?
No, that was perfect. I should have said that at the top of the meeting. I forgot. So thank you for clearing.
No,
that.
no, my pleasure. I'm not used to the Zoom reading again, Jim. It was so I got to get used to this.
So is there a possible, oh, sorry, go Rob first.
That's okay. Steve, can you talk a little bit about how this is paid for? Clearly, we didn't put this in our budget. So, it's an unexpected cost and a cost that I feel like we should bear. But if you could just talk about that a little bit, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, there is line item for legal fees, depending on how much legal fees. There could be enough in the legal fee that we don't use, but otherwise there would be transfers. Michelle and the superintendent would look to transfer unexpended funds in other areas and move it to the legal fee category, and we would expend and track through the legal fee, which we do have a line in our budget for legal supports. So there's money there each year, and then we transfer if there's less.
So that would cover us for this year, and then next year we would add that to the legal fee line in the budget.
You nailed it. Absolutely perfect. You got it.
Thank you.
And for the community, can you provide a list of the districts that have signed on? Is it a long list or it's just?
You know, I don't want to speak to that piece. Conval is the lead
Okay.
district.
Okay.
I think in the paper I've seen Claremont, Newport, Norm, but I'm not sure
Okay.
exactly where people are in the process
Okay.
thereof. Those are public, if that's okay.
That's totally fine. Yep, I respect that.
Hi, Juliet. Thanks for joining us.
Hi. I have to leave by 7. So.
We should be done hopefully shorter than that. So you should be in good shape,
Okay.
but thanks.
Thank you.
Other questions for Steve or thoughts on joining? Even if we don't have questions, I don't know how folks are feeling about joining of the lawsuit.
I can kind of hop in. I mean, I feel like I've beat this drum a lot, but we continue to be 50 out of 50 for state aid to our public schools. That recently came out in the paper again. We continue to be 50 out of 50. Our state gives the least amount to public schools than any other state, and it is clearly a problem. So I am 100%. I was in support of the amicus brief, and I'm in support of us joining this. I think even though there is a little bit of a cost, of course, for attorney's fees, I think that what we could and should get would more than cover that. And it's really in taxpayers' best interest as well, because ultimately what we want to do is decrease property taxes by having the state pay its fair share.
Yeah, I'm in support as well. You know, I think that Hopkinton is really lucky that we have such an active community on both sides, but we're able to provide an exemplary education given where we are with their property taxes. But this is a statewide issue, and there are many communities that are not where we are in terms of what they're able to do with their education system. And I think it's really important to help set the standard and say that this is important. It needs to be an issue that's taken seriously and fixed by the state. So, yeah.
Norma, Rob?
I fully support this. You know, we are, as elected officials, are the voice of this community, and this community has struggled, you know, specifically with high property taxes due to poor state funding. And, you know, I think Andrea nailed it exactly. You know, for a small amount that we have to pay in to hopefully send a message and receive better funding options, I think it's a great opportunity. I like the idea that it's going to depreciate a little bit if more school districts participate in this. So to me, that's a really good sign that it may not be 10,000, it might be a little bit less, but to send a big signal as Hopkinton is, I think it'd be great for this community. So I support it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. We heard loud and clear last year about the difficulty for some folks in paying their property taxes, and this is a path towards reducing those taxes. And it's the right burden sharing that should have been going on for a long time and hasn't. So, yes.
All right, and I like all the rest of the board members am in support of this. I'm glad we joined the amicus brief last go around, and this feels like another way in which we can maybe I'm gonna say a better way, but a more public way, a supportive way for the other districts by hopping in. And so I would be in support of this too. So this is an action item we can have at the end of the meeting. So if there's any other questions or thoughts for Steve now, we can do that, or we can move on to the next topic and then vote towards the end of the meeting, if that's all right. All right.
I have one more question.
Go for it.
I'm still in support. Steve, do you know, did they say anything? Would we be getting updates, or how will they let us know how the case is going? That's more just for my own interest.
Yes, you will be as a team member of the team, you'll be getting regular updates on strategy and progress. Of course, that'll be non-public because it's a legal strategy, but yeah, you'll be getting regular updates.
Great, thank you.
And then I have one other. If it gets sent up and then gets sent back down again, what happens then? Or can we just do this? Like, can Conval do this, you know, till the end of time?
That's a good question. I know that in talking with Kimberly and watching, they are committed to seeing this through. They truly are, and they put a little, resources once you start, it's just the resource. I think they don't expect it to be turned down again because they're going to fix the original issues and go through. So, but I don't have we didn't talk with Kimberly about that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if there's no more questions, the next item on the agenda, I think we've all, we all watched and read the news, and we know that the CDC last week changed their recommendations on mask use outdoors. And I'll just say I went to a varsity baseball game, I think the day that the CDC announced it, and I might have been the only one, actually me and my poor mother, who was my guest at the game, might have been the only ones in the spectators wearing a mask at the game. And so I talked to Steve and just wanted to put this on the agenda just to talk about like our policy and how we conduct it. Because I think many people are reading the CDC guidelines as not to wear masks outside. So this is really just an opportunity for us to talk about our expectations and the district's expectations around mask usage outdoors. Steve, I know you've had some internal discussions with your team and staff on this topic. I don't know if you have anything that you want to share or help frame the discussion.
No, and I know we'll have a substantive discussion about masks on Thursday as well. But for today, it's really just about the outdoor events, just to be consistent and make sure that we enforce the board's expectations at games. I did review the MOA. The MOA for mask wearing and PPE and social distancing is it is on school grounds outside, but it really regulates students and staff. So just spectators not connected to students and staff are certainly not regulated, not part of the MOA. So there is the flexibility if the board wanted to move, and then we can work through a process if we wanted to change the students and staff piece. But I agree, Jim. I appreciate what you said, that we really do want to make sure we follow evidence and guidelines, and also if we say we do want to be, if we say it, we want to enforce it, and we want to be consistent with our practice and what we believe. So I appreciate this discussion very much.
I guess my question would be, so are we talking recess time? Are we talking when kids get to go out, between classes for a break? Or are we just talking extracurricular activities?
Right now, this is for crowds at games, Rob, but I think on Thursday we'll venture into the regular meeting and talk about, because there is, we've received a number of emails about asking to reconsider the mask policy, as you just said, for recess anytime we're outside. And I have not, when I talked with the nurses about spectators at games, because I meet with them every week, I talked to Amy. Amy was fine. The only concern that she was looking into, I think I wrote about it in board notes, was what happened. We did have a case where a faculty member sat outside right next to someone without a mask for an event. It wasn't, an event, and that person was positive. So we did quarantine. Even though they were outside, they were so close together. So the only concern is, if we do have people outside without masks right next to each other, and that was an unvaccinated staff member, just to make sure everybody knew, the impact on quarantining is something that we just have to be ready for staff. Obviously for parents and community members who want to go, that's not our concern. But right now we do regulate students and staff outside.
And is part of this just an enforceability issue? I read Parker Potter's Daily Trudge report, which is always very interesting. And he was, it gets kind of touch and go.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. And then I guess my other question is would it be viable to have a mask and maskless area for people who aren't comfortable? Spectators would say, I don't want to be next to people even now outside. So you have a section of the sidelines where people wear masks, and people, don't want to wear a mask, you go to another section. I don't know. That might be just crazy, but.
Well, I think fortunately it's outside where we have significant, I think people can choose to select to social distance in a way, because we have, obviously outside there's a big spectator space in all our fields. So I agree with you 100%, but I think people can self-select if they want to wear a mask where they go, and if they don't want, they can certainly social distance appropriately.
Okay.
It's my understanding that CDC says you don't have to wear a mask outside if you're fully vaccinated, correct?
Yeah, I believe
That's correct. Okay. So we're revisiting this issue to this board based on what CDC's guidelines has changed. Okay.
For right now, for this meeting, spectators at games, but I think on Thursday we'll have to wrestle with what Rob alluded to, the recesses and the other school, because those are addressed in the MOA that we've signed and agreed to. Does that make sense?
Does the select board's ordinance supersede whatever we decide because it's on town property, or how does that work?
It does not apply to outside. So the select board's ordinance is only indoors. It does not require masks.
They did not do outside where you can't do social distancing. Okay.
And that's what Neil, when I
All right,
spoke to
that's
Neil
what I had.
about it, he said it does
Okay.
not apply to outside.
I mean, there's no need for an immediate decision on this. I know we do have sporting events occurring, and people will enforce it no matter. There'll be enforcement of whatever our policy is, and we could, if members want, we could kind of kick this until Thursday and have more of a comprehensive discussion on masks. I think the reason because we had a meeting tonight, and there are events going to happen on our facilities this week, so we just figured this is an opportunity to talk about it. But if we want to give it a few more days, I mean, there's no emergency situation we have to resolve for.
Are all the teams that we're playing still wearing masks? Is that?
Yeah, and that's on the agenda for Thursday, Rob. Right now, our cohort is still wearing masks. NHIA will talk about Thursday the Athletic Association regulates the tournament play. They don't regulate non-tournament play. And coming forward on tournament play, what the board will have to wrestle with on Thursday is they are changing from mask required to recommended but not required, giving it up to individual choice. And so that's the tournament piece. That is what the council voted last week, and that's on the agenda. We haven't seen it yet, but it will be on the agenda on Thursday.
Sounds like a whopper of a meeting, Rob.
Great. I'm excited. I can't wait.
But the cohort that we've joined, I asked Dan on Friday if the cohort is planning any other changes, and he did not inform me of any of our group that plays regularly about any changes there. But I think, obviously there's a lot of intensity about outside mask wearing right now.
I know this will be Thursday, but I guess one of the questions I would have for Dan is, do we know anything about students and the amount of students that have started to get vaccinated? Student athletes.
Yeah, we have, and I'll try to get that for Thursday from Amy. We are getting some. I think we have some high school kids coming to this Fridays for the clinic because it's 12 and up. It's not just the 12 to 16 genre. So they're still in process, but based on Amy and I's discussion, I do believe that for many high school kids, certainly the varsity level, the junior and seniors, Rob, if they wanted to get vaccinated, they've had the opportunity to.
Steve, one thing that I was just thinking about, this wouldn't have any changes to the prom proposal, right? Since that's going to be outdoors and stuff.
Right. Well, and that's on the agenda for Thursday as well.
Okay. Okay. I haven't seen the agenda yet. I'm sorry.
I'm just a little behind. It's not your fault. It's my fault. There's a lot going on, but the prom regulations will have a recommendation where we are. But in talking with the nurses, and Amy was supposed to check in with Trish and Chris, and I'll check in with them before Thursday, because of the close proximity of the prom and things, that we've had no traction about masks off at the prom. Unless people take a mask break, they can go off. I don't want to speak too much about my daughter's experience at the prom because she'd kill me, but I can tell you in Neighborly High School, masks were worn throughout the prom, except during eating. But we're going to talk about where we are on vaccinations and testing for the prom as well. Because remember, we had that discussion. And so we're finalizing those recommendations for Thursday night.
So a lot of preview for Thursday, but tonight is really, and again, we don't have to make the decision tonight, but it's really just about spectators at some of our outdoor sporting events, and how we, I guess, how do we want to consistently enforce
Well said.
mask wearing?
I know, I feel like we have a lot coming up on Thursday, and I don't know as much is going to change. Maybe stuff will change between tonight and Thursday night, but it feels like if we could solve at least one of the numerous mask concerns. I mean, I haven't had a good mask conversation in a couple months on Zoom. I mean, I kind of feel like we're outdoors. We can ask people to socially distance perhaps a little bit more, like try to keep their 6 feet. But I think, I mean, if this is gonna, I don't know who is going to be running around telling people to put their masks on, but if I'm already hearing that folks are listening to CDC guidance about people who are fully vaccinated, they're also listening to the science that has come out about your chances of getting COVID outdoors, which is exceedingly small. I think encouraging separation, as much separation as possible, but perhaps chasing people around, asking them to put on their masks, especially as it gets hotter, would not be the best use of our time for spectators in particular. I am not talking about students or coaches or anyone else. I'm only talking about the spectators who come and watch our sports. I mean, that's sort of where I fall on this.
Thank you.
I mean, that's where my head is at, Andrea, is enforcing masks on the sidelines on our sporting events. I think is going to be increasingly difficult because I think, at least what I witnessed is, people are following the CDC guidance and they're outdoors. They have been separating at the games, and they're not wearing masks, which is what the guidance has been. I know for vaccinated people, and we have no way to ask or see who's vaccinated and unvaccinated. So it feels like it's at least for our outdoor adult spectators, it feels like a losing battle. And if we've been trying to adhere to CDC guidance as much as possible, and that's their recommendation. So it feels like, and then having someone who's going to be enforcing and going to individuals, it just might be an unfair thing to ask someone to go enforce. At least that's my feeling at this point. But
Everybody okay? And then I can let Dan know.
My feeling is, once again, we've talked about this for 11 minutes, and I'd rather wait till Thursday, because we've had plenty of instances in the past where we've made a decision and then, come to have to revisit that in a day or two, and 3 more days of dealing with this and a little more time to think about it. I don't know if you put up some signs that said something along the lines of, vaccinated people, you're more than welcome not to wear your mask. And if you haven't been vaccinated, but I don't know. I'm tired of COVID, but it just seems like I'm not ready to say yes. Not that I'm not ready to, I mean, I get it, but it's been 11 minutes. I like to think.
I still think, I'm okay with waiting just because I'm actually unclear. I checked the ordinance from the select board, and I'm pretty sure that if you can't maintain social distancing, that they recommend that masks are worn in outdoor settings, which I do think would supersede all of this. And then it's up to people to choose to do that or not. I was also just looking at the vaccination coverage rates, and it looks like, according to the Times, we're at like 47% for 18 plus. So we could see like how that changes by Thursday or not. And again, this comes into like people's autonomy. And Andrea, I think your points are right. People are clearly paying attention to the CDC guidance. But I think a little bit more time doesn't hurt too much in terms of just seeing how we're doing, because I think this will bundle into the broader strategy, like Steve was saying, in terms of outdoor play, recess, breaks at the high school, et cetera. And it might make sense to have a concerted strategy for all of it in terms of our communication and approach, which we might already have in everyone's heads. But it'll be a longer discussion.
I just want to say you guys are all awesome. Just no, I guess I'd wait till Thursday also. It also gives us an opportunity to have people mull this over in the community. You know, if it's on the agenda, they can see that's coming up. You know, I need a little more time to think about it. I understand everyone's opinion here. I just need a little more time to marinate it in my head. Because I'm going through my head. I've been to a lot of games, you know, and I've seen everything, you know, from no mask to no mask, and I just need a little more time if that's okay with the board. Just a couple more days.
Well, it sounds like we'll put this into our conversation on Thursday. And I guess I would just ask, and I know most of us have done it, but check out the CDC guidelines on outdoor mask usage and what it says, and you know, rates of I know Andrea hinted at it, what the rates are outdoors. And then I guess, Steve, I know we have games happening at our fields this week, and so we'll keep our signs up requiring masks and enforce as we would have before.
Best we can, absolutely. And just as we're leading to Thursday, there is not a public hearing for ESSER on Thursday. I did not, it's my fault, I did not put it in the newspaper in time. So we'll talk about the schedule of that. But so you get a reprieve on 5. Well, it sounds like it's gonna be a long enough meeting anyway, but it'll be a 5:30 regular start.
Dulcie, I saw your hand go up.
Oh, my only other question about the masking at games was, I've only been to a couple games, terrible aunt, but it doesn't necessarily look like people are necessarily socially distancing. It seems like there's like clumps and people are pretty packed, obviously, because it's a one sideline spectator sport. So that's my only other consideration. And I know, and I know we can't really tell, you know, it's hard to do, but I'm just trying to think through all the other factors we'd want to consider. That's not really additive, so thanks.
All right, anything else for the good of the order? All right, if not, so we have one action item, which is there a motion for the Hopkinton School Board to accept the superintendent's recommendation to join the Kentucky Valley School District school funding lawsuit?
So, second.
There you go.
Motion's been made and second. Is there any discussion? And all I'd add is our understanding is that you know, the cost of doing so will be, you know, approximately $10,000 a year for 2 years. I don't necessarily think that's a limit, but it's probably good just to put down what our understanding is of the cost of entering into the lawsuit, our expectation anyway. Any other discussion? All right, Norm.
Norm Gupel is a yes.
Rob?
Rob Nato, yes.
Andrea?
Andrea Folsom, yes.
Dulcie?
Dulcie La Palma, yes.
All right, and Jim O'Brien is a yes, and so that motion passes. So Steve, if you can let the Conval attorneys know, that's perfect. With that, we actually I skipped ahead a little bit and I apologize. So we do towards the end of the meeting, and so if there's any member of the public that wishes to provide comment, if you could just use the raise your hand feature towards the bottom of the screen. We'll give everybody a minute to find that. All right, and so seeing no hands go up for public comment, I think we've reached the end of our time together this evening. So thank you very much, Steve. Thanks for the packet and putting all that together, and we'll see everybody on Thursday at 5:30.
Thank you. Appreciate it all. Appreciate all you're doing.
Have a good
Thanks,
night. Good
everybody.
night, me and Juliet. Thanks for joining.